What do you think of the Classic Plus save notification? Notice how it spans the entire page width, covering up important details such as the page tabs. Let's see what it takes to transform this into a less obtrusive notification. Something like this. Now, we covered Fluid in a prior episode. This episode focuses explicitly on transforming Classic. Now, our first trick is to make the save notification appear on the screen so we actually have something to style. So I can press a save button or Alt-1 key combination and, oh, did you see that? The save notification appeared, but only for a fraction of a second. So clearly that isn't long enough to style the notification. So let me help you out. I'm going to do a Control-Shift-I on my Windows-based keyboard, which is the hotkey for Chrome on Windows, to open the developer tools. I'll switch to the Elements tab, and here I'll do Control F to open the Finder search bar. And in the search bar, I will type in PTCPSAVEDIV, which is the style class used for the wrapper around the notifications element. And I can see why it's hidden. Here on the element inline styles, we see that it has display none, and we see that it has visibility hidden. So let's select the item. Let's disable those two attributes so that, fantastic, the text appears on the screen. Now this div element, this wrapper, the notifications wrapper, it's always here, even before you save. What's missing before you save is the text in the middle, the saving page text. Now we don't really need any text because we just want to style well, on my screen, it's the green box at the top. We don't need any text for that. But later we're going to do a little bit more testing, and I think the text will be very beneficial. So Alt-1 is the key combination that I used to bring in that text. Okay, so let's start styling. So I can see here Oracle is using the selector PT Classic plus PT, the name of the class name. That's a fantastic starting point. So I'll copy that selector because what I want to do is override the Oracle delivered styles. I mean, I can see they're using a background color here. I want to change the size of the item. Top is set to 0. Okay. Let's create our own style rule and then quickly switch into the inspector style sheet, the style sheet the browser just created for us. And we'll just paste in that same selector and then start applying our styling. So let's go with a width of 350 px. Okay, perfect. We've resized the box according to the size that we desire. Next up, let's round to the corners. So how about border dash radius? Let's go with 5px, give it a nice soft corners. How about the background color and the border? So I want to use our styling branding theme. So how about border dash color? Okay, perfect. And now the background color. And I'll grab that from our theme as well. Fantastic. I mean, are we done? Is it really just 6 lines of CSS? Actually, maybe. But I want to do a little bit more testing because I want to try something. What would happen if this message was longer than just the phrase saving page? What would that look like? Now, I have to ask the question though. Have you ever seen the save notification in Classic contain more than just those 2 words? Or perhaps in a different language, the translation for saving page. Now, Fluid's completely different. In Fluid, there is no default save notification. So in Fluid, we have to resize and make sure that box will fit whatever text somebody chooses to place within the notification message. But Classic doesn't have that provision. So maybe we're done right now. But I want to see, what does this look like with longer text? So I have some lorem ipsum text, the standard test paragraph. And let's find the text node. Where is that phrase saving page? Perfect. Let's replace it with some lorem ipsum text and see what it looks like. I don't think so. We're not done, are we? So let's do a little bit more styling. So I think what we should do is reset the height. Perfect. Okay, now it's inside the box. All of the text is inside the box, but you'll notice the close button is at the bottom. Now I'm curious about that as well. Why? Why is the close button at the bottom? So if we look at the HTML structure, we see that we have the container for the message, we have the text, and of course, the close button actually appears after the text. So that's why it shows up at the bottom. So what I want to do now is I want to style this PT pop-up close button. maybe perhaps applying a different styling, perhaps a different positioning, we could move it up to the top, at least in the upper right corner, which is where we're used to finding a close button. And also want to copy what's Oracle using for its selector, PT Classic Plus. It's the same selector we use with, after that is the ID. So let's copy the ID. And then in our sources, we'll use our ID selector. Now, normally that's enough, but just because their selector would be more specific than ours because it says only the ID PT pop-up close when it is a child of these two style classes. So let's make sure we're doing the same thing so that our selector specificity is at least equal to Oracle's. And now let's just start moving it. So position, absolute. Okay, that pushed it off to the page a little bit. You can kind of see the circle there in the lower right corner of the pop-up frame. So let's bring it back onto the screen. I don't know where it is from a right perspective, but let's try a right 0. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I mean, from the horizontal perspective, the vertical leaves something to be desired. So let's fix that as well. Let's go with a 0 just as a start. Oh, looking at the spacing top and side, I think it's off a little bit. Let's push it down a little bit. How about 0.2 EM? More. 0.3. Close enough. Now, if I wanted to be certain, what I would do is I would use my zoom feature of my browser, perhaps Control Plus on my Windows keyboard, to zoom in a few times to see, does that spacing look appropriate? If not, I would adjust my top and my right positions. Okay, so that's good. But we notice that the close box is actually floating over the top of the paragraph text, which makes sense. HTML positioning, it's the Z index and the order, etc. What we want to do is push the text to the left a bit to leave room for the close box. So back up here in the container that has the text, let's apply a little bit of padding. So how about padding of, I don't know, let's go with 2 EM. No. We're close. We're getting close. That's a little bit too much padding at the top. For performance reasons, I would normally use the shorthand CSS for padding to get all of the 4 attributes here on one line. But for clarity, let's spell it out. So how about padding dash top? And let's go with, I think 2 is too much. Let's go with 0.2. That's better. And how about padding dash right? Let's get the 2 most offensive pieces taken care of first. Padding dash right, let's go with 2 EM. I think that could work. I'm looking at the third line there though, and it looks like the third line needs to be pushed a little bit more to the left. It's hard to tell because the text is centered. So I think before we go any further, let's change the justification. So how about text dash align? Let's go with left aligned. That's good. Now, I still think we may want to change the padding right a little bit, but at least you know where to go if you want to make changes. Let's fix the padding on the left side now to make it consistent with what we see at the top and make the bottom consistent as well. So padding dash left, let's go with, hey, 0.2 worked before. Let's see what it does here. Not enough. No, how about 1? That's pretty good. Let's go with that. And padding dash bottom. Let's see what 1 does here. I'm good with that. I like that. So next step would be to persist this. Now, persisting means stored in Application Designer so that when this page loads next time, when the browser reloads this page, the CSS downloads with it. Now, when the browser downloads the CSS, it's going to apply the CSS based off of a couple of rules, loading rules. First one is based off selector specificity, meaning if you have 2 CSS selectors with equal weight, and we do now, because we have the Oracle CSS selector, which is in PS style def, and we see their selector, which is the exact same selector that we're using. So if 2 CSS selectors have equal weight, then the web browser will apply based off order, loading order. Which one loaded last? Last rule to parse wins. I don't know that we have control over that, and I don't want to assume that risk. So how about this? What if we make our selector more specific? Then when the browser reads through this list of selectors, it says, okay, we've got this selector and we've got this one. Well, this one's more specific. So wherever there's a conflict, the more specific selector wins. Let's make our selector more specific. So looking back at the HTML, there are a couple ways we can do that. One of them, for example, we notice Oracle selectors, they're not using the element. So we could perhaps further qualify and say, give me the PTCP save message where, or excuse me, the PTPC save div where it is a div element. Or we could go up a little bit further and see if we can find a hierarchical relationship. And so in this case, I see that there's a PSBox tools hidden. So let's use that in our selector. So what we're saying is, give me the PTCP save div when it's a child of PSBox tools hidden, which is more specific than Oracle selector. And we'll do the same here as well. Perfect. Okay, so we'll copy this CSS back into Application Designer. We'll create a new freeform style sheet, freeform substyle sheet, paste in our CSS, give it a name. We'll go with our site-specific prefix. Let's go with save notify FF for freeform style sheet. Now we need to figure out, how do we inject this CSS into the PeopleSoft user experience? Now there are a handful of different locations where we can inject the CSS. Some of them as customizations, some of them as configurations. And of course, to make upgrades faster and easier and better, we're going to go with a configuration option. So what configuration options do we have for injecting CSS? Well, that depends on where do we want the CSS. So if we look at the PeopleSoft user experience, we'll notice at the top, there is the header section. Now the header section is controlled by the branding module. So my first thought is, how about if we were to apply the CSS through the branding module? We could create our own branding theme, and then through different branding themes with different role-based attributes or attribute-based branding, we could perhaps style this notification message differently for each branding theme. But you'll notice this notification message is not in the header. How can we prove that? Let's go back to the elements and let's continue working our way up. You'll notice that the notification message wrapped in blue there, the notification message that we've been styling, the HTML we've been working with, is a child inside of the iframe. So this is not part of the header, which means we cannot style it through the attribute-based branding module. We need an alternative method to inject the CSS, a method that will allow us to inject CSS into every single PeopleSoft element. Now, I hate to do this. I'm going to close this box that we worked so hard to expose so I can get to the new window, so I can then navigate to People Tools, Portal, Branding, and then branding system options. And in branding system options, I absolutely love this. A feature added to the early 8.5 releases of People Tools. We can inject a style sheet object into all components. So the one we want to inject is the JSM save notify FF. I'll press the save button. Do you want to save the branding system options? I'll say yes, and wait for it. Was there save notification that appeared at the top there? I didn't see it. Let's do this. Let's reload this user profile page. So F5, reload, and let's hit Alt-1 and let's see what happens. Oh, wait, I saw it. I saw it appear there for just a split second. Oh, let's make a change. Let's change their name. Save, and oh, there it is, saving page. Now, the interesting thing, you notice it's left aligned versus centered. Again, that was a change that we made based on the assumption that we might have to support large amounts of text. I don't know that that's a good assumption. If it is not, I would go back to just the centered notification message. Now, I have to say, I love the branding system options that allow us to inject CSS into, or JavaScript for that matter, into all Oracle delivered components. One location allows us to inject into all components. But I think this could be even better. What if we could do this on a branding basis, using the branding module, role-based branding, attribute-based branding, so we could then choose how to style that notification message based off the branding theme selected. Unfortunately, that isn't built into the People Tools framework today. But as you know, as we've discussed before, anything is possible. So now I'm curious, Do you have more ideas for improving the PeopleSoft user interface? If so, share details in the comments below. We love to hear about your projects. Now at JSM Pros, we teach people tools and web development concepts like this every week. Be sure to check out our website to see what we're offering next. Or here's an idea. Subscribe to our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter feeds to receive updates every time we post a course. Or do you have a team that wants to learn more? Give us a call and let's get something scheduled. Now, before you go, I have a question for you. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in a future soundbite? If so, let us know by sharing your idea at soundbites.jsmpros.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.